Good morning. Good morning and welcome from the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship in Laguna Beach. And it would be wonderful to hear that music again, but I think we'll move along with the service for now and we can listen again later. My name is Pamela Floodman, and I will be serving as your worship associate today. Today, we are delighted to welcome Reverend Rica Kaufel to UUFLB to our virtual pulpit as our guest minister. Reverend Rica visited our congregation last year in January, and I have been looking forward ever since to having an opportunity for her to join us again. Rica was born and raised in Germany, graduated from Meadville Lombard Theological School, and completed her internship with Orange Coast UU Church last June. Reverend Rica was ordained last weekend, so we have the honor of being the second service where Reverend Rica has served as the minister, as a fully ordained minister. So many, many congratulations from all of us to you, Reverend Rica. She is a part-time minister at the Unitarian Universalist Church of Anaheim and also works as a lecturer for academic English at UCI. Frequently, she volunteers with the Building Bridges Camp, taking teenagers from all over this region to the mountains for a weekend to teach them about systems of oppression and how to dismantle them. So this effort with the Building Bridges Camp is part of the California Conference for Equality and Justice, and it's a group I'd like to learn more about. So maybe after the service today, Reverend Rica is going to be staying with us. Maybe she can tell us a little bit more about this group. Rica also has told us that her very favorite thing in the world is spending time with her daughter, Elise. The title of today's service is The Greatest Common Denominator. Sometimes when we meet someone for the first time, seeking out common ground that we share with each other seems like the safest bet. What if instead we took the leap and embraced each other's differences? Today, we will be exploring where this approach may take us and how we can embrace difference and also maintain our commitment to live out our values. At UUFLB, we are a welcoming congregation. Whoever you are, whomever you love, no matter your age or gender, your economic or immigration status, the color of your skin, or whatever sincere questions you bring with you today, we welcome you. As Unitarian Universalists, we have 7 principles that guide us as we build religious community together. When I was thinking about the theme for today's service, the principle which stood out for me is the first principle. As a Unitarian Universalist congregation, we affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of every person. This is the principle which most of us can probably recite by heart, and yet even though it is so familiar, it is also worthwhile to spend time really thinking about what the first principle means for us and how we apply it in our everyday lives. So I am very much looking forward to our exploration this morning. Our fellowship is served by our minister, Reverend Lee Marie Sanchez, who leads us in worship on one Sunday each month, and also joins on many other Sundays and for many events which occur during the week, including our Friday Zoom at noon discussion group, which all are welcome to attend, and our recent Wednesday night book club, in which we joined with members from other local UU congregations. Reverend Lee Marie is also committed to helping UUFLB members connect with the opportunities that come up for us to take action, including tasks that are manageable, even in these times when we must remain apart and stay at home. Tasks like letter writing, phone calls, donating our time and talents to providing meals at the alternative sleeping location, and more. So I encourage you to look for Reverend Lee Marie's email messages alerting us to these opportunities. Generosity and action are the keys by which we can make a difference in the world. So thank you all. Each Sunday, anywhere there is a service held in a Unitarian Universalist congregation, a chalice is lit. Today, I have asked my daughter, Dara Skarecki, to light the chalice from our home. If you have a candle at home, you may wish to light it with us now. Our chalice lighting words this morning are written by Elizabeth Harding.
We Unitarian Universalists don't drink from our chalice. Instead, we use it to hold the flame. The circle of the chalice helps keep the fire small. The flame doesn't blind us. It doesn't burn us. It gives us light so we can see all the different things in the universe, even the invisible ones. Because the Unitarian Universalist flame is a light of learning. The flaming chalice is a symbol of learning and of love. It's our symbol, the symbol of Unitarian Universalism.
Thank you, Dara. I apologize for the phone ringing in the background. So now, to start our exploration this morning, I invite you to join me in reading together our centering thought. Words written by Turkish novelist Orhan Pamuk from his 2002 novel, Snow. The words are on the screen, and these words remind me that being different makes us who we are. And if we are wise, we learn to embrace all of the ways in which we are different. So while you will be muted from home, I invite you to join us in reading these words from Orhan Pamuk and to listen to them with your heart. As much as I live, I shall not imitate them or hate myself for being different to them.
There we are. Good morning, everybody. Sorry, I look like I'm going to the mountains, but I feel like I'm in the mountains because my house is really cold this morning. So please join me in singing When Our Heart is in a Holy Place. When my heart is in a holy place, when my heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we trust the wisdom in each of us, every color, every creed and thought, and we see each other in each other's eyes, when our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we tell our story deep inside, and we listen with a loving heart, and we hear our voices in each other's words, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart in a holy place, when we share the silence and sacred space, and the God of our hearts stirs within, and we feel the power of each other's faith, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart
Thank you, Carol. As we gather today from our homes for worship in this holy place of community, let us take a moment to remind ourselves why we come together. I invite you to read these words from home when and if it feels right for you. If you wish, please unmute your microphone and we'll read together the words of the unison affirmation. May we be
reminded to
reminded
hear
of our
our
highest
highest aspirations
aspirations
and
and
inspired
inspired to
by
bring
gifts
our
of
gifts of
love
love
and
and
service
service
to
to
the
the
altar
the
altar
of
of
altar of
humanity.
humanity.
May we know once
Again, that we are not
are
Not
not
isolated
isolated
beings,
beings,
but
but
connected
connected
in
in
mystery and miracle
and
and
miracle
miracle
to
to
the
the
to the
universe,
universe,
to this
this
community,
community,
and to each
and
other.
to each
to
other.
each other.
Good morning, everybody. I am so glad to be back with you again today. As we gather this morning in this sacred virtual space, let us reflect what has brought us here. What reasons, decisions, challenges, and needs have made us gather. Maybe it's just routine. Maybe it is a deep felt need to be in community. Maybe it is the feeling that the world is becoming too much to carry by yourself. Whatever has brought you today, whoever you are, know that you are welcome. Despite all the different decisions, needs, or challenges that brought us, we have all made it. Somehow we are all here, right now, ready to be together, grow together, discover together, constantly evolving, constantly changing, ready to worship together. In the words of David Breeden, we unite in our differences. We unite in our differences in background and belief. We unite with gratitude and hope for a world of differences, hope for a world that honors differences. We unite in community with gratitude for difference. Welcome.
We have now come to the time in our service to briefly share the important events that have touched our lives in the past week. We value this fellowship as a sharing community where our joys are amplified, and a caring community where our sorrows can be shared and lessened. During this time of sharing our joys and concerns, we have paused the recording of the joy that brings, I think, both for protecting yourself if you're able to be vaccinated, and also that protection extends to the community, and each person who's vaccinated helps to better connect our whole community. And how wonderful to hear that the systems, while they take time, were working, and that people were enthusiastically, it sounds like, engaging in, again, what they're doing to help themselves and community. I know that also pairs with some of the challenge and sometimes sorrow of how to make the process work for us individually. And I'm just so grateful to hear the community here sharing ideas back and forth for how to make this work for each other. Noreen, so exciting to be able to share the joy of those around us, or even those who are around us in a Zoom box. And congratulations to your grandson on his milestone birthday, and Patrick on this milestone, really, of being able to refinance and look to the future, maybe feeling more secure in that way. I know that there are also joys and concerns that weren't shared this morning that may be being held inside or shared individually, and yet we as a community are here to hold all of us together in our hearts and minds in the coming week, so that we can draw on the strength that we give to one another when we share our joys and when we share our sorrows, lightening each other's burdens so that we can care for each other in community.
Next, we have a reading by the Reverend Jackie Clement, and it is titled Faith and Belief, or Why Sometimes Grabbing Onto What Appears Most Solid is Exactly the Wrong Thing to Do. She writes, last summer, my husband, John, and I were canoeing in New Hampshire. At the end of a trip around the lake, I climbed out of the canoe first, had 1 foot in the lake and 1 foot in the canoe. That's when things went wrong. While taking my foot out of the canoe, I caught my heel on the edge. Losing my balance, I instinctively reached for the most solid thing within my grasp, the canoe. There are times when grabbing onto what appears most solid and stable is exactly the wrong thing to do. When I resurfaced, I saw my husband sitting in 1.5 feet of water, fishing for his glasses on the bottom of the lake. In my attempt to save myself, I took an innocent bystander down as well. I tell this story not to demonstrate my lack of boating experience, but to say that I understand the emotional impetus to grab onto what seems most stable and solid when the world is tipping us off our feet. In religious terms, we might say that we are driven to hold on ever more tightly to our beliefs when we are under stress. Like grabbing a canoe for stability, depending on belief to keep us from going under is to grasp at the wrong thing. It is not our belief we have to hold on to, but our faith. Though the two are often taken to mean the same thing, there is a subtle and critical difference. Faith is a deep-seated confidence, vital to our very existence. Belief is only what we think is true, though we wouldn't stake our lives on it. Faith leaves room for mystery, belief does not. As Albert Einstein wrote in his personal credo, the most beautiful emotion we can experience is the mysterious. Sometimes what seems most solid and stable is only an illusion of stability. Things that appear more ethereal, that may seem to be the toughest to grasp, are in fact the most stable and secure. Love, faith, and community may seem to be intangible ideas, but if nurtured, they can serve as the very bedrock of our lives. Beliefs can fall away, but the things that seem most insubstantial, perhaps because they can be the hardest to come by, have the greatest worth and provide the steadiest base.
It is as much a blessing to be able to give as it is to receive. In this self-governing, self-sustaining community, we recognize that it is our responsibility to do both and to do both well. Our fellowship depends on the love and the generous contributions from our members. We are empowered by the innumerable gifts which you all bring as you join in covenant with us: service, trust, collaboration, patience, humor, compassion, curiosity, time, and the gift of financial contribution, which allows the fellowship to meet its financial commitments. All of these gifts generously given are needed for the fellowship and for its continued good work in the world. The information on your screen provides 2 ways in which you can give, either electronically on the left or by sending a check through the post to the fellowship. This information is also available in the email message which you receive each week with the link to join the service. Now, please settle yourself comfortably in your chair. You may want to close your eyes, place your feet on the floor, and feel connected to the ground beneath you. Let your hands rest quietly. Breathe deeply. And as you breathe, allow your shoulders to relax. Follow your breath in and out. In and out. Allow yourself to simply be in this moment as we share a few moments of silent meditation.
One of the most defining times in my life was a year I spent in Dublin, Ireland, when I was 17 years old. Back then, spending a year abroad during high school was the thing to do in Germany. Some of you may have had German exchange students at your school, or maybe your family even hosted one. But to me, the US was just awfully far away. So I went to Ireland instead. Initially, I stayed with a host family, but after a few months, that arrangement fell through. And instead of finding a new host family, I moved into Malaysia House, a private dorm for international students in Dublin. I moved in during Eid al-Fitr, the Muslim religious holiday celebrating the end of Ramadan. Since there were a lot of Muslim students in Malaysia House, it was a big celebration. I heard a lot of excited rustling and bustling while I was sitting, and suddenly a knock on my door. Outside were a couple of young women, just a year or so older than me, who invited me to join in. And joining in I did, in the feasting, the trip. And with this started a friendship that would transform not only my time in Ireland, but my whole life. My very best friends were Titi, Fanta, and Saima, who were respectively Malay, Nigerian, and a self-declared Pagwegian, having grown up in Norway's tightly knit Pakistani immigrant community. We spent every day together, sharing the big moments and the small moments of our lives. Our friendships consisted of laughing together, talking, eating together, being homesick together, and sometimes mending each other's broken hearts. Once Fanta had to go to the hospital and we refused to leave her bedside until after 3 days, the nurses kindly asked us to please just leave during non-visitation hours. But what made this friendship so special was not just our closeness, but our vastly different cultural backgrounds, which we plunged into headfirst, full of excitement. Neither of us had an interest of becoming alike or trying to influence each other. We just wanted to know each other. We wanted to learn about each other. through each other, we got a vision of this vast world that lay ahead of us with all its different cultures and practices and perspectives just waiting to be discovered. We embraced each other's differences with full hearts. And I believe that since we never set out to influence or change each other, we actually did end up influenced and changed in the most exquisite ways. At least I know I was. It broke me wide open to a beautiful world of diversity and difference. This time set the course for my life. And in a way, it set up a utopia in my mind that I have ever since kept searching for, my own beloved community. However, what I have found more often than not is that emphasizing and exploring differences is not something we tend to do. Much more often, we look for similarities, especially when we meet people we deem quite strange, quite different from ourselves. The safe choice seems to look for what connects us, what makes us similar. We grab onto what seems stable and tangible, and sometimes that is a good start, especially when we feel so threatened by each other that we fear we cannot engage with each other civilly. Not every relationship starts with a gentle knock on the door and an invitation to food and festivities. Often contact with difference arises from conflict. This has been a common experience for many of us in the recent years. And in those situations, finding what connects us when we feel so divided is a valid strategy. At times too, the small commonalities can give us a feeling of comfort and safety. And sometimes we really need comfort and safety. We really do. But safe spaces are often not brave spaces, and comfort does not always inspire growth. If we only look for similarities in the other, we will be left with nothing but the common denominator of what we share. So we miss out not only on all the greatness that the other might be, on the chance to be inspired and awed by what sets them apart, but we also make ourselves small. We hide that which makes us different and suppress our own selves. We squeeze ourselves and the other into cookie cutter versions because we fear that all that is outside of the established norm is too much for us to love and embrace, or is too much of us to be loved and embraced. If everyone is the same, no one has to change. We may focus on similarities to show that we are just as good. Or we do so because we want to show that somebody who's completely different from us is also just as good as we are, because they're not actually that different. Think about it in terms of power. The theologian Bernard Loomer states that in traditional or hierarchical understandings of power, the person most powerful is the person who can influence others, the person who can set the norm and therefore make others convert, assimilate, be like them. So in a way, focusing on similarities is like calling it a draw. It's agreeing on a power balance. We assume that essentially we're similar enough that neither has to force the other to be like them. In a way, it is a strategy to keep the peace when no peace is guaranteed. This can become problematic though, if our desire for peace really just masks our desire to keep the status quo or our unwillingness to change. For example, a common way of insisting on similarity that seems well-intentioned but is in fact quite harmful is when predominantly white people claim to be colorblind to express that race does not matter to them. What they overlook is the vast difference in experience in how people of color are treated in the US, and if we overlook this injustice, we will perpetuate it. Sometimes recognizing difference is the first step towards change, a way out of the status quo. Maybe what we have seen in these last 4 years is an unveiling of the status quo and the long legacy that has shaped it. Maybe what we have learned too is that the status quo is not acceptable anymore. We are reminded of this every time the police shoot an unarmed Black person. We are reminded of this when the COVID death toll in the US reaches 400,000. We are reminded of this every time California forests are yet again on fire. And we're reminded of this when angry mobs storm the Capitol and it's in a furious attempt to keep the status quo, the existing power structures, even if it costs us our democracy. The status quo is unacceptable. We need a new way forward, one that is radically different. And we have to be open for difference so that we're also open for the possibility of creating something better. And in order to have that, we have to let go of the safety of what we know and embrace that which is different. If we want to create a justice system that is restorative rather than punitive, we have to embrace difference. If we want to defund a police form that targets people of color, often with lethal force, we have to embrace difference. If we want to build an American society that does not have racism built into its very foundation, we have to embrace difference. And if we want a nation that embraces the dignity of life, humanity, and the world we live in over profit and economic gain, then too we have to embrace difference. And embracing difference so that we may forge this new path may mean questioning and letting go some of our previously held beliefs, because we know now that not all of them served us well. We are out of the canoe. We are in the water. It is time to stop grabbing onto the perceived but deadly safety of what we know, the safety of the canoe, our long-held beliefs, and instead surrendering ourselves to the waters of faith and the mystery of difference. A courageous concept and a scary concept. A concept that requires us to start listening to the voices that have been marginalized and the ideas and visions that have been ignored because they may have been outside of the norm and outside of the status quo. It means giving powers to those we may deem different and trusting their leadership. As Unitarians, Universalists, we are in the blessed position where difference does not have to be as scary, because the first of our 7 principles actually promises similarity, similarity on the greatest common denominator that there is, that every person has inherent worth and dignity. If we remind ourselves of that ultimate similarity, we can stop searching so desperately for other commonalities and truly embrace difference. Holding on to the first principle is like a little floating device that will make surrendering to the water feel a little safer, will make the vastness of the world a little less scary. Shortly after my time in Dublin, I went abroad yet again, this time to attend college in the Midwest. I arrived in August 2001. Just a month later, 9/11 happened. Like those around me, I was shocked, shattered, and scared. But when, in reaction, a fear of difference flared up in the West in the form of Islamophobia, I knew deep in my heart, in my bones, in every fiber of my being, that Muslims were neither the problem nor a group to be feared. I knew this not because I had experienced my friends, Tidi, Saima, and Fanta, and all of the other ones as people who were just like me. I knew this because I had experienced them to be people with such immense inherent worth and with awe-inspiring, endless bounds of dignity. Their difference had changed me in ways that made my world a less scary place. And with that, I too could become a person less scary to those who perceived me as different. This process is an important part. Our journey towards feeling safe with and being open to difference on a large level can start really small, with a group of friends, with listening deeply to activists and advocates who of groups we don't belong to, or reading an author with a truly open mind and heart. Radical change in our hearts and minds and in the world at large can start with small steps. If we return to Bernard Loomer for a second time, he calls this relational power. The ability to both produce and undergo an effect. It is the capacity both to influence others and to be influenced by others. Relational power involves both giving and receiving. Ideally, this is what power, what relationships would look like in our beloved community. This utopia we're not just searching for, but actively trying to build. A willingness to give and receive, to change and be changed. A mutual process of undergoing an effect to create something new, something better, something more just and more beautiful. And if you're worried that the change may go too far, that an unquestioned embracing of difference will lead to a dangerous loss of universal values, then here, once again, the first principle comes in. Not just as our starting point for exploration, but also as our ever-present safeguard. Because in the tumult of difference and change, our inherent worth and dignity is still constant and central. Difference, even radical difference, is okay as long as it does not threaten our inherent worth and dignity. That is the litmus test. If we mutually respect each other's inherent worth and dignity, both in theory and in action, in our treatment of each other, we need not fear each other, but instead we can work together to change the status quo and to create difference in the world. If we take the first principle, our affirmation of every person's inherent worth and dignity as the true cornerstone of our beloved community, as the starting point and the safety net, then within these boundaries, we can let go of our beliefs and instead hold on to our faith in each other, in ourselves, and in all of humanity. May it be so, and blessed be.
Hello again. Join me, please, in singing Love Will Guide Us. Love will guide us, peace will guide us, all solid us, doing the way, on the road from great to giving. If you cannot see my angels, if you cannot speak before nonsense, you speak from deep within you. You can change the world with your love. Love will guide.
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of our community, or the fire of our commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
In the words of Jean Rickard, we have a calling in this world. We are called to honor diversity, to respect differences with dignity, and to challenge those who would forbid it. We are people of a wide path. Let us be wide in affection and go our way in peace. Amen, and may it be so.
Please turn along again. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be. With earth as our mother, we are family. Let us walk with each other in perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment now. With every step I take, let this be my solid vow. Take each moment, live each moment in peace, eternally. Let there be peace on earth. Let it begin with me. And have a wonderful day. See you next week.